Now let me provide an introduction to form number one. The first thing I want to note here is for the first time we see these little icons, also kind of small, but these are question marks, and they actually appear on several different places on this form number one. The first example I'll give you, whenever you click a question mark, it brings up a pop-up box with good information. That's very helpful. This first one provides just general instructions for creating the annual report. Of course, sometimes you'll see that these question marks, like down here in the second question mark, when they pop up, they provide some instructions that are specific to form number one in this case. But it gets even better than that, because there's another question mark down below here on form number one. Here's the section dealing with revenue. The question mark here has very specific instructions about revenue, and since there's a lot of questions when it comes to the subject of revenue, there's a lot of questions about program income and recaptured funds and how to distinguish between the two of them. This pop-up box even comes with more in-depth guidance, frequently asked questions that are specific to this topic at hand. There's a good amount of content there that one can review at their own pace. So as you're getting familiar with form number one, a first thing that I'd like to do is to point out that right over here in this first section we have the place where we can add our strategies. Most everybody has home ownership related strategies, and some people even have rental strategies. Much like the most recent Excel annual report, those two categories are separated out. Well, I want to start by adding a strategy, a home ownership strategy, and I'll only enter one for purposes of this example. There's a very small icon here, it's kind of like a sheet of paper, and when I click this, there's the delay. Here is where I'm going to add my strategy. There's a small icon for a pencil right over here, and when I click on that, it allows me to add information. The information that I want is to type rehabilitation. That's my strategy. Now, I also need to add a strategy code. You see that right here. By the way, this text is not usually so crammed in like this, but I've increased the font size to make it easier to review. But under codes, well, I can't remember what the code is for rehabilitation, but when I click on codes, I'm reminded right here, oh yeah, rehabilitation is 3, number 3. So I'll just go ahead and click that in this pull-down box here. All right, the next thing to do is to add some expenses into this section of the strategy. I'll do that right here. For our purposes, I'm going to put $350,000 has been expended on 12 units. And now it's time to save. I come over here where there is a little disk to save this information. I like that when you save it, the text gets much bigger now. Now I scroll down to additional uses of funds, because you can also expend money on administration, which is what I'm going to show right here. $35,000 of administration, and also $5,000 from our program income, the portion of program income that can be spent on admin expenses. So I've added some more things there. And the way I save that, well, there's a little button right up here in the upper right hand corner, Save Changes. So I can go ahead and save those changes. Okay, we're coming right along. We now have a total for all of our expenses added so far. This is, by the way, a closeout annual report that I'm creating. You can tell if you scroll to the top of it, because right up here is a pull-down menu where you can choose, are you working on the closeout year? This year that would be the 06-07 distribution. And that's what I am working on. So I'm going to show that pretty much all my money is expended. I've shown you the expenses so far, but now let's catch up with entering information about the revenue. Okay? Now, right now, when you see this and start to work on it, the online annual report will not have $250,000 here, but rather whatever amount of money your jurisdiction actually received, that's going to be the amount of money that will appear right there. Well, okay, I'll play along with this right now, since I can't enter a figure and that figure is not right. I mean, this jurisdiction would have received more than $250,000. let's see, I'll just put $50,000 of program income bank interest, 50,000 program income repayments, and recaptured funds will put $50,000 there too. Again, I save changes. Now I want to point out something now that I've pressed enter, and that is that right here at the bottom of this document we have an interesting note about carry forward. Well, this is a closeout report. And for a closeout distribution, that's when you're allowed to carry forward a little bit more money if you've got it. And in this case, once I've added in my revenue, and I've also added up here my expenses, I see that my expenses are a little bit less than the revenue, and it automatically, this online report automatically calculates that I have a $10,000 carry forward, an amount of money for the next year. This online report will automatically add $10,000 as a source of revenue for the next distribution, or what we call the first interim year. One more thing about carry forward. In order for this online program to calculate this automatically, you should not add any unencumbered amounts of money on this first page of a closeout distribution report. Okay? Now, as it turns out, there really is $10,000 less expenses than there is revenue. Compare $390,000 of expenses with $400,000 of revenue. And yet, technically, that $10,000, that extra $10,000 of revenue is still unencumbered. You'd think we should list it here in this column for unencumbered money, or up here under a strategy, more likely, unencumbered money. Don't add that money in there so that it will automatically calculate this carry forward.